Hi, Heather.
Hi.
It's good to see you again.
You too.
So, I have your assessments and your results from the last time that I met with you. Do you remember doing the Myers-Briggs? This
Yes.
one? Okay. So, your results were an EFJ, which means that you are more extroverted rather than introversion. You have use your intuition more than you do your sensing. And you base your decisions mostly on feelings rather than thinking, and you tend to judge more than you perceive. So now I'm going to go over what Myers-Briggs is your characteristics that are frequently associated with the type of person that these results came up with. And now I'm going to have you tell me if you think that this is what you believe is true for yourself. So ENFJ, it says that you are warm, empathetic, responsive, and responsible, highly attuned to the emotions, needs, and motivations of others. Find potential in everyone, want to help others fulfill their potential, want to help others fulfill, or may act as catalysts for individual and group growth, loyal, responsive, and precise, and criticism sociable, facilitate others in group, and provide inspiring leadership. Do you feel like that accurately describes you as a person?
Pretty much.
Okay. What do you feel?
Well, not the responsible part, but okay.
What do you feel most accurately describes you in that?
The warm.
The warmth. And what about the leadership? Do you feel like you're a leader?
Well, I'm a mom. I have to be a leader.
Okay. So now I'm going to jump to the strong interest inventory. Do you remember doing this one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, you ended up scoring a high with social, which doesn't seem very shocking considering that you have extroversion as a Myers-Briggs score rather than introversion. And then your second highest score was artistic. And then you tied for your third highest score between enterprising and realistic. So what these mean is sociable would be that you have a tendency to be more social in social settings. You enjoy being around others rather than seclusion. And then artistic, you prefer to express yourself in more creative ways and have more freedom of being able to do your own work, and you enjoy having those rather than having these strict, firm guidelines of exactly what you're supposed to be doing. And then for enterprising, it has to do with more of like a business orientation of, entrepreneurship kind of thing. And then realistic is more that you're hands-on and you're very active and you are working with tools and machines and instruments in your work environment. How do you feel that those describe you?
Pretty accurate.
Okay. Anything that you feel doesn't describe you?
Well, realistic is probably, I'm surprised it's not more.
You're surprised it's not more? Why do you think that?
Because I'm a pretty realistic person. I'll tell you straight with that.
Okay. And then I had you complete a timeline. And something that I noticed, some common themes, was that there's a lot of loss in your timeline. You have the loss of your grandfather. You have the loss of your sister going into the military. Your parents moved you from Renton to Auburn. That can look like it was considered more of a loss for you. Then you left your second son's father. Parents were divorced. And it looks like your other sister left too and went to college. How do you feel that those events have impacted you?
I think the only one that's really impacted me the most is my son's father, but It is what it is.
Why do you feel like that's impacted you the most?
Just because my kids aren't allowed to be around their father all the time now.
Do you feel like that's had any influence on your career?
No.
No. Okay. How about we talk about Leo's problem? Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Well, that just makes me nervous to be around, like, can we stop this? Okay, I don't want to bring up Steven anymore.
Okay, that's fine.
It's recorded.
Okay. So, can you tell me a little bit more about the Leo problem that you listed?
So when I was growing up, we had a neighbor that me and my sisters used to go and play with all the time.
Mhm.
And I don't know if it was his grandson or if it was his son, I have no idea. But we'd go over there and go play. Well, all of a sudden one day, police and cameras and news people are everywhere. And we come to find out that he was a child molester, or something to do with the child molester where his friend did it, but he watched and never said anything or whatever. So ever since I've had my kids, I don't trust anybody with them, period. I let them go with my sisters, their dad, it's fine. But when they go to, like, social gatherings or where we're even at the grocery store, somebody looks at my kids weird, it just kind of brings it back. I don't trust people I do not know because of that. And even some of the people I do trust, I do not trust because of that.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever put them into daycare or anything?
No.
Okay. Do you feel like that's one of the reasons why?
I do not trust daycares whatsoever.
Okay.
Especially and then a couple years ago when I saw in the news where it was an in-home daycare and some lady put the kids in the trunk and left them in there. No. I do not trust daycares whatsoever. You have no idea what's going on. I've heard of plenty of people's kids getting hurt at daycare and they have no idea what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I do not trust daycares.
So, you're working currently, correct?
Yes.
Who's watching your children during the day when you're at work?
My boyfriend's mother picks them up, takes them to school, and then picks them up after school, and then my boyfriend picks them up.
Okay. So has this influenced the type of hours that you work or your boyfriend works?
No, not necessarily, because they're in school most of the day, so
Mm-hmm.
she only sees them a half hour before school and a half hour after school.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit more about Miranda going into the Coast Guard. Who's Miranda?
My older sister.
Okay. And how much older is she than you?
2.5, 3 years.
Okay. And how did that impact you? Her going-
It was just more of like it didn't impact me like emotionally, it was more like a physical thing, like she was around all these years and all of a sudden she was gone.
Okay.
It just wasn't normal.
Mm-hmm. And then you also said that your parents moved that same year.
Yes.
What was that about?
My parents moved me from Renton, growing up my whole life in Renton, to Auburn my sophomore year of high school, and I did not like it.
What didn't you like about it?
Well, I just didn't understand why they would move me. Like, why couldn't I just stay at that school? I was already halfway through high school. Why would you move me?
Did they ever explain any reasons for why they did move you?
No, to this day they don't. They said it was better. That's all they say.
Like better schools?
They just say it's better.
Okay.
I have no idea. It wasn't a better school. Personally, I don't think.
Okay. And then I see that you also went to Jean Juarez, and you graduated from Jean Juarez. Are you doing hair currently?
I do hair on a daily basis for people. I just do not work in the salon.
Why is that?
There's just too much drama.
Okay.
I mean, I like doing hair. I could see myself doing hair even when I went to school, but it's just not something I want to do on a daily basis. It was more like a hobby kind of thing when I went to school for it. It was like I got out of high school, then it was like, what now? But it's a good experience, at least. I mean, I'm 28 years old and I still do it, but I don't work in a salon.
So did you ever intend for that to be your career?
I don't think so.
You don't think so, or at the time you did?
To be honest with you, I had no idea when I was that age. I just went with the flow.
Okay. And then I also see that you had 2 sons, very close together.
Yes, they're 14 months apart. Unexpectedly.
Mm-hmm. And how did those impact your career?
I think that's another reason why I really didn't go for going into salon either, because I had my first son. I didn't know what to do. He was very unexpectedly born. Didn't know I wasn't planning on having kids or ever having any kids, and then I had to.
Yeah. Okay. And then I want to go back to when you left Keegan's father. How did that impact you? How did that adjustment impact you?
Well, I was a stay-at-home mom ever since I kind of worked when I had Kaden, but as soon as I had Keegan, I was a stay-at-home mom. He worked. I did everything around the house. And then when I left him, I had to move back in with my parents, with my dad. And then I had to figure out how I was going to take care of them on my own.
And how did you figure that out?
I got a job.
Okay. And then who was helping you take care of the kids when you did get a job?
Well, I started dating a guy named Brett, and his mom actually stepped forward and walked them pretty much while I was working.
And how long was the gap between being a stay-at-home mom and until you got your job again?
I stayed home with my kids until Kaden went to kindergarten. And then I ended up moving in with my boyfriend and his mom because my dad was selling his house. And I just kind of, I went and got a job and said, okay, I got to do this. And she watched my kids while I went to work.
Okay. And I've also noticed there's been a lot of changes so far in just from 2014 to 2015. You got a different job.
Yes.
You got your first car.
Yes.
Well,
I had a car previously. This is the first car I bought on my own.
And it's a brand new car?
Yes.
Okay. And then it also says that you have a good job. What's a good job mean?
Well, we like to joke around and say I have a big girl job now. It's a receptionist / dental assisting in training. So I'm working 40 plus hours now. I'm making good money. And I'm basically learning a career without going to school. My dentist is teaching us.
Okay. Alright. Now that I understand that a little bit more, I'm going to go ahead and jump towards the longer assessment that I had to complete on the computer, the 16PF. And so the score is on like a scale from like 0 to 4. And so 4 would be having the highest and showing these as very dominant traits of your personality. So I'm going to just go over these really quick with you. There's warmth, and you got a 3, which you said earlier that you do feel like you're more of a warm person and you're more welcoming of others. Reasoning is 2.1, so I mean that may relate to how you feel that you're more realistic, because you said that you felt that you were realistic in the way that you made decisions. Emotional stability is 2.3. Dominance is 2.9, which also goes back to how, it says that leadership, and you said that you do have leadership because you're a mom, and so you do have that, almost dominance over 2 children. Liveliness, 2.6. Rule conscientiousness, 2.2. Social boldness, 3.1. Sensitivity, 2. Vigilance, 1.7. Abstractedness, 2.6. Privateness, 1. Apprehension, 1.4. Open to change, 2.2. Self-reliance, 1.9. Perfectionism, 2.1. Intention, 1.8. How do you feel that describes you?
Yeah.
Okay. You laughed at when I said privateness. Why?
Well, it's because I'm not private whatsoever.
Okay. So it doesn't surprise you that score's pretty low?
I'm surprised it's not 0.
Any score that did surprise you?
Perfectionism?
Yeah.
It probably should be higher because I make everything the way it needs to be.
So you feel that you're very organized and you're very...
Well, I would say organized, but it needs to be done the way I want it to be done.
Okay. So when you do a task, what does that look like for you?
Oh, I get it done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you start out doing a project, you make sure that it gets completed
the
way
yeah.
that you want it to? Okay. What about your emotional stability? Do you feel like that's an accurate score?
I'm surprised it's not more like a 3. I'm pretty emotional. My emotionals are pretty stabilized, but I definitely show it
Okay.
I show all of my emotions pretty well.
Okay.
You can read me by just looking at me.
And what about your openness to change?
I don't like change.
Okay.
So I'm surprised that's not lower.
What is it about change that you don't like?
To be honest with you, I don't really know. I just don't like it. I don't like the fact. Well, I just don't like the fact that I want things to go the way it goes. So when it changes, I don't know. I just don't like it.
Do you feel like any of the things in your timeline have to do with changing?
Yeah, because it's been changing my whole life.
So you feel like maybe your previous history hasn't been very stabilized? Or do you feel like that you did...
I grew up pretty stabilized, I feel, but shit happens.
What do you feel like was the hardest adjustment and change to wrap your mind around?
Probably after me and Keegan's dad split up, figuring out what I was gonna do.
Okay. And you said there was pretty large time gap between the split up and then you getting a career again, correct?
I'd say about 3 years.
3 years. Okay. And how did that make you feel?
Made me feel like I was better off. I've always been the kind of person you just figure it out. Growing up, that's how we were. Figure it out. Our parents didn't baby us whatsoever. So when shit happens, you figure it out.
Do you feel like you had a lot of support from your family and friends during that time period?
Oh yeah, my sister definitely helped me a lot.
Okay.
One sister.
One sister.
This sister.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about your current career.
Well, it's still kind of new, so it's pretty good. Like it's a definitely different experience than what I'm used to doing, but I could definitely see this as a career, and going forward being a dental assistant or maybe even a hygienist. With the way our doctor is talking, that they send you to be a hygienist, and if they're going to send us and pay for that, why not take it?
Okay. So I'm going to make a couple of recommendations for our coming up sessions. So I'm going to have you complete a genogram, which will be, I'd prefer that you go back to your grandparents, and if you are able to, maybe go back to your great-grandparents, since you did know your great-grandfather and your great-grandmothers. And then I'm also going to have you describe a fantasy job. And then I'm also going to have you schedule a job shadow and explore some job duties based on what we found here. And we're going to look at some other job options in our next sessions to see what kind of jobs you feel are interesting to you based on your results, okay?
Okay.